You know, I thought that I would leave procrastinating in 2019, but here we are in 2020 and I have procrastinated this video. And I again have to title this video Books I've Read Not So Recently, instead of the title Books I've Read Recently, because I keep procrastinating this video. Today I've got 5 books that I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on. These are some of the books that I ended my 2019 off with. I'm not going to be talking about some of the books that I've already shared my feelings about in some of my videos like Best Books of 2019 or Books in Bed, but these are books where I haven't really shared my thoughts on them, so that's what I'm going to be doing today. So I'm going to stop wasting your time right now and we're going to get started. Let's get it. The first book that I read not so recently is The Near Witch by Victoria Schwab. This story is about a place called Near, where there's this fairy tale told about this witch called the Near Witch. It's used as a tactic to scare children, and nobody really thinks anything of it. But when a stranger arrives in town and kids begin going missing, this idea of the Near Witch only being a fairy tale begins to be challenged. Rightfully so. We follow our main character Lexi, who is doing everything she can to protect her younger sister, but also getting caught up in the mystery of the Near Witch and trying to figure out everything on her own. This is Victoria Schwab's first book that she ever published, and it was so interesting going back and reading her debut book for the first time. Because of the fact that I'm so used to who she is as a writer currently, it was nice to kind of go back in time and see how she started out. Now, I will say that this book is not as captivating as Victoria Schwab's other books, but I still found it to be a really solid story. And the thing is, I don't feel like this book was trying to be one of those books that just has you shook out of your mind. I really felt like it succeeded in being this kind of gentle story, and in that way, I feel like it does kind of mimic a fairy tale-esque story, and I personally really liked that aspect. While at times I did feel like it was kind of on the predictable side of things, and it didn't really feel like a story that was pushing the limits, I would argue that it didn't need to do that. It didn't need to be groundbreaking to be a good book. It still has that beautiful, luscious writing that Victoria knows how to deliver, and I really feel like this book was probably pretty unique at the time it was released. I don't know if it'd be considered unique now, but that's besides the point. I still respect this piece of work, and I feel like it's a great debut from an author who's only ever continued to grow in her avenue of writing. Next up, I read Grave Mercy. This book takes place in the 15th century Brittany. Couldn't spit it out. We follow a girl who has a pretty sucky life. Her dad's straight up awful to her and sells her off to this farmer. It's an arranged marriage situation, and at first she's kind of optimistic. She's like, yes, got rid of my dad. Hopefully this farmer is great. Turns out the farmer is just as sucky. So who ends up being her saving grace in this book? None other than the god of death. She's sent to the convent of Saint Mordain, where she will endure training, and by that I mean she is training to become a full-fledged assassin. There's a part of me that doesn't understand how I got attached to this book, because looking at my reading taste, this book does not necessarily align with my reading tastes. It does a lot of things that I would deem not enjoyable. For example, the pacing is slower than a sloth. The plot has pockets of lulls that feels like nothing is happening. Absolutely nothing. And lastly, it's one of those books where I was like, a lot of these pages could have been chopped and wouldn't be missed. On the other hand though, I guess it did have quite a few things that I did enjoy. Our main character develops into somebody completely different by the end of the book. Hashtag character growth. The plot evolved into something that I wasn't expecting. Hashtag took me by surprise. And it's got politics galore. Hashtag we love to see it. I very easily could have DNF'd this book, and honestly there were points where I was like, should I keep reading this? But for some reason, I kept reading it. My eyes just kept soaking up the words. I guess it comes down to the fact that while it did have things that I didn't like, it's balanced out with things that I do like. It's like when I get ramen and it has an egg in it. I eat the heck out of the ramen, but I pass the egg on to somebody else. Hashtag I hate eggs. Next, I read The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. This is basically the story of Frankenstein told through the eyes of Elizabeth Frankenstein. Elizabeth was an orphan girl who was taken in by the Frankenstein family. During her time there, she grows this really strong bond with Victor, and after he disappears, Elizabeth goes on this journey to track him down, only to find that when she finds him, his obsession for dark things has kind of grown immensely, like massively grown, and it's kind of completely overshadowed his life in a really unexpected way. This book had so many points that just like completely enthralled me and left me in that jaw-drop shooketh state of mind, but those moments didn't really heal me from having to unclog this book with all the things that I didn't like. I feel like this book kind of suffered from nothingness. Is that the best way to put it? I feel like that's a good way to put it. I hate saying it that way, but nothing really happens. As I've said over and over again, I love books that are like very character driven, and this one could be argued that it's a very character driven story, but I feel like that argument leans more on the side of if you get attached to the characters. I for one really only found myself interested in them by the end of the book. I had a bit of a slow burn attachment to them, if I will, and I wouldn't even say I'm attached to them. I just like them a lot more in the end. And I feel like one of the faults this book has is that it didn't manage to kind of push push off those captivating, really interesting moments. It didn't really manage to ride out that wave. We had our jaw drop moment, and then we quickly fell down to that kind of slow movement where nothing really happens. And I'm really bummed that this one didn't really end up working out for me, because I went from not liking Kiersten White books to loving them to now feeling mixed about this book. I guess Kiersten White's gonna end up being one of those like hit or miss authors for me, but arriving out of this one and feeling kind of meh about it isn't gonna throw me off from trying more of her books, because I know that she has what it takes to write books that I love. I mean, the Anti-Darken trilogy says hello. Next I have here Strange Planet. You've probably seen these comics all over Instagram. It's a collection of those comics from Instagram in book form, and it's basically these short little comics about these aliens who are experiencing things that we as humans experience on the daily. And it's done in this really comical way that takes these mundane things that we're so used to and making them quirky and funny through the observations of these aliens. I can't help but wonder if this is inspired by Everyone's an Aliabin If You're an Aliabin Too, one of my all-time favorite books, because that came out in 2017 and these comics started in 2019, and they have a very similar feeling to them. But I will say that this one has more of just like a comical view of the world, whereas Everyone's an Aliabin has more, dare I say, heart. I hate making that comparison too though, because I feel like a lot of these comics do have some heart to them, but I just can't help but compare this to one of my all-time favorite books, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, maybe I shouldn't compare them at all. There's a thought. This is one of those books that I would put into the category of mood booster. Having a sucky day, read a few of these comics and have your mind hit that refresh button until you're feeling less sucky. You're sure to find a panel in here depicting a situation that you yourself have faced, and the aliens will take that situation and alienify it and have you pushing out a hearty laugh from the depths of your soul. It's a good time. Lastly, I'm going to share my thoughts on A Curse So Dark and Lonely, which I feel like I've said this description in so many videos, so let's see if I can make a fresh description here. Let's make it fresh. It's a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. Oop, I've already failed. We follow a girl who finds herself being transported to a new world. A world where a boy has been cursed and has destroyed everything he's ever known. Together they begin to tackle this task of untangling this curse that prevents him from being the person he truly wants to be. I had my skeptical pair of eyes on going into this book, but I was pleasantly greeted with a surprise. The hype for this book is popping off these days, but I would argue that that hype is valid. Is YA oversaturated with Beauty and the Beast retellings? Oh, for sure. But is this one a low quality one? Not at all. In fact, this one is done so loosely that you even forget over time that it originated as a fairy tale retelling. The winner of this book for me are the characters. We have Harper, who right at the beginning of this book does something that instantly makes me want to root for her throughout this book. She sees this girl being dragged away by a guy, which is obviously a shady situation, and instead of being a bystander and doing absolutely nothing about it, she lunges at the guy and is like, yo, this is not okay. Of course, this is how Harper ends up getting transported into this new world, but still, we stand. Rin, our other main character, also isn't that hard to root for. Sure, he can be a bit eye-roll inducing at times, but he's really going through it with this curse he's enduring, and you can't help but want him to succeed in breaking it. And don't even get me started on the side character Gray. He is now my ride or die, my brother from another mother. To me, he kind of outshined the main characters. While the characters are the champs, they're still given a plot and a world that really benefits the story. So those were some of the books that I ended off my 2019 with. You guys should let me know down below in the comments if you have read any of these books and what your thoughts are on them, or let me know a book that you've read recently that you ended up really enjoying. If you like this video, be sure to go and hit that like button. If you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe or go and hit that bell icon and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your day is bright, that tomorrow is brighter. Keep reading what your heart desires, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye!